It's Friday, February 20th, 2015. I'm Jimmy Principe.
And I'm Trey Comstock. Put in your final orders because this is Tech's Last Call, episode 108. Your last call for Tech News of the Week. Tonight, Jimmy drives his Apple car through Lenovo's spyware. And I use the NSA's malware to save Sony. But we start tonight with 2 weeks in a row of really creepy things. We are, unfortunately, used to hearing about how the NSA and GCHQ are able to hack in and skim data from various web services. But it turns out that their abilities run deeper than just skimming regularly available data. The latest revelations from Edward Snowden is that NSA and GCHQ used cyberstalking and hacking to steal millions of encryption codes to SIM cards that go in phones from the various SIM card manufacturers, including the one that provides the SIMs for all four U.S. major carriers, Gemalto. The usual denials and obfuscations have been issued. But what this means is that they can decrypt cellular data from certainly millions and possibly billions of mobile devices without having to get a court order or even talk to the service provider. Because it's just, they're able to take what's being broadcast through the air, decrypt it using this code, and then have access to it. Fascinating. As if that isn't bad enough, Reuters and security researchers at Kaspersky Labs published a report this week that some highly sophisticated digital spying entity, cough, NSA, has the ability to implant malware within the firmware of shipping hard drives from most major hard drive brands, including Seagate and Western Digital and Samsung and Micron.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, it's the ones who make all of the hard drives. The name of the group behind this is the Equation Group,
which is awesome. And
they seem to be connected to the Stuxnet virus that hit Iran's nuclear program and many believe is also linked to the NSA. Kaspersky found that this firmware-based malware is on thousands of computers in over 30 countries in fields such as oil and gas, aerospace, diplomacy, Islamic extremism, and nanotechnology. To add to this, Kaspersky believes that this has been going on for 20 years. We laugh because it's easier than crying. At this point, literally, is anything safe?
No.
No. Nothing.
Papers.
No, I mean,
maybe.
Look, but theoretically digital was because, now you don't have to, because they could break the lock on a, filing cabinet. I've seen James Bond, I have a Minolta spy camera from the 50s. I mean, they have always had a way to do this.
They have cell phones.
And now they just, it used to be that, they had to put, an agent wearing a tuxedo, carrying a Walter PPK, into a building to get this information. Now, this is the most American thing on the planet. They don't have to leave home. They don't have to walk. No physical activity is required. NSA is an obese agency. They don't have to go anywhere, and all of the information comes to them.
They're all just sitting in, Greenbelt, Maryland?
Yeah, where my aunt lives. They're right off of I-495.
They're right at 495 and 95. They're right on the north side of town.
Yeah.
Trey and I both lived in D.C. We're both familiar with the area.
Yeah, very familiar. I worked on the east side. I did not. I worked in Southeast, Joe.
The safe side of
no,
DC.
well, from the NSA, yes. It was the gang warfare that was
exactly
a little more concerning.
I mean, okay, so this is my thing with this. It's just horrible, yes, obviously. But at some point, I just kind of go, what am I supposed to do?
Yes, sure. Absolutely. But here's the thing. We're already at a point where they don't trust U.S. cloud services.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is going to hurt hard drive vendors too. So this has both the kind of ethical spying problem of why are you spying on people, and then you're doing this at the expense of technology vendors, as well as like the nation's good name and all of that, which they've never really seemed to care about. Yeah,
they don't care about that. I mean, my thing with this is that a lot of these hardware manufacturers are not American, so it's a lot more difficult to say, oh, we don't trust American companies, we don't trust this. I mean, Samsung is Korean.
Yep.
Like, no, it's not. They're not an American company, and saying that they're an American company is just in no way correct. So I think that kind of repercussion will be less so, but it will further
But China's a growing market, and this is going to keep them out of the Chinese market.
That's true. No, that's very true.
All of this.
The Chinese, infamous for stealing things, like,
right,
how to make
the hypocrisy of the Chinese is fascinating. Yes.
So is ours. But
that we get mad at them. Well, it used to be that we would get mad at them and think we were justified in it. Because we weren't doing it. Turns out, thanks to Edward Snowden, the really key Snowden revelation is that, oh no, we're doing it too.
But at some point, I have to think, so if this has been going on for 20 years, so 20 years ago, 1995, Windows 95 had just come out. And I really have to think, man, some forward-thinking guy at the NSA, they were going, oh man, RSA encryption is just like so hard, and we're leveraging all of our data centers to get this information. Like, how are we ever going to be able to do this? And some dude, probably some young guy out of, like MIT, was like,
Harvard.
But at MIT, NSA, more likely to be someone with a technical background, or Caltech, was just like, just put it in the hard drives. What? Yeah, just bake it into the hard drives. That they'll never think to look there. They'll assume it's fine.
Well, and so this gets a little fishy because we're not entirely sure how they got the source code for the hard drives, right? Because it's not like publicly available. Like, that's a major trade secret, the firmware of your hard drive.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the Reuters sources seemed to imply that when the government checks the firmware for security holes,
they add a security hole?
No, what they're really doing is sending the firmware, the source code, to the NSA. And the NSA can do whatever they want with that information. Because, these companies clearly must have protections about against reverse engineering and all of these kind of attacks, such that, and they've denied that they just straight up gave this to the NSA in the way that AT&T or Facebook or Google have just like given it to the NSA. Apparently, the hard drive vendors are saying no. Well, it's in their best interest to deny all of this. I'll give them that. But they're saying, no, we didn't give it to them. We don't know how they got it. Which, okay, great. I'm so glad that you can say that. So let's assume that they didn't just give it to them. Then they've found a way to either get it through, covert means. This is the NSA. They also got SIM card encryption codes a similar fashion.
They also got a USB drive into Iranian nuclear power plants and got Stuxnet installed. So, like...
Yeah, and they do that, and they have like
that was a man in a tuxedo with a Walter PPK.
Yeah, one assumes. Or it was a dude with a flash drive, but
possibly with a British accent. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, Iran used to be a British colony, so they probably speak English with a British accent. So that's reasonable. But I think it was like an inside dude. It was not like a U.S. operative. It was a U.S. agent, which is to say a local paid money to do a thing. Not like Brad Pitt dressed up like an Iranian going in. See, real spycraft is not a lot of it's not a lot of costumes, from what I understand. It's a lot of pay the dude who is already that thing to do a thing. So I don't think it was like an American guy strapped to a rope holding a flash drive from the ceiling.
I'm thinking, Mission Impossible, Tom
where I was
Cruise.
going. And that was to steal, I mean, to be clear, that was to steal data. And that was a whole, like...
That was a zip drive, though. That was not a...
It was a zip drive. My favorite is Mission Impossible 3. So at that point, technology had kind of happened, and so they were dealing with camera memory cards. It was like a key plot point. I think it was MI3. Was in Bluetooth, but we were Bluetoothing from 200 feet away, and I looked at them and went, nope. See, when the first Mission Impossible movie came out, I was a dumb kid. So, the fact that they had Google Glass then made total sense to me. But now, because they were wearing these glasses like mine with little cameras, 2 of them, and then that was going back to a real-time display miles away without any wires. I was like, sure, yeah, cellular data is amazing.
Or could be.
So we're a little off. I think the bigger impact in terms of broader humanity is the Snowden story, is the SIM cards. Because this could well be just your SIM card, right?
Or all SIM cards.
Right, billions of them. Gemalto, who we know was hit, made 2 billion SIM cards last year. 2 billion. Or something like it. They've made billions of SIM cards. So this would imply that the NSA has really deep access. And this might explain some of their capabilities.
Right, and why we've been accusing, and it may actually be that we've been accusing carriers of doing things that they were not doing because
we
the NSA
know that Verizon and AT&T just gave them a pipe. I mean, that was that happened. But some of it is maybe they don't have the global carrier network that we think they do. What they have is just the ability to hack phones. And to be clear, I mean, that kind of hacking, actually it was metadata analysis that brought in Osama bin Laden, which is a really great way of justifying a lot of terrible things. One of the big points that Glenn Greenwald makes in No Place to Hide is his book about his experience with Snowden is there are much bigger dangers in this world than Islamic extremism. And we have given up basically all of our rights, except that to vote, in the name of fighting what is a serious threat, but not this world-altering threat. And so the accusation he makes, and it kind of rings true
because
here,
of fear.
Well, no, actually, the argument he makes is it's the military-industrial complex, right? So there's this whole industry, which Snowden used to work for, that makes billions off of the constant growing of the security state. Your Boeings, your Lockheed Martins, your Booz Allen Hamiltons, your all of the these are just some what we often call the Beltway Bandits, right? Because they have all of these big buildings, Northrop Grumman,
all those people that are in Crystal City.
All those people in Crystal City, all those people in Greenbelt, all those people in Fairfax. There's one that I could see from my apartment in Fairfax called Mantech, which is not, by the way, a bunch of very burly men scantily dressed shooting at people, which was what I assumed it was. I thought this was a crazy Mantech. Man, it's not quite. It's just another generic, Beltway Bandit consultant security firm. And these people make a lot of money. And our economy makes a lot of money. Certain aspects of our economy make a lot of money off of this constant, security state. The Joint Strike Fighter program may end up costing a total of $1 trillion. $1 trillion. Think about that for a second. $1 trillion for an airplane. I mean, we'll end up with more than one of them. But right now, most of that $1 trillion is sunk cost. It's development cost. It's not the individual price of the plane, which is also astronomical. And this was supposed to be the cheaper one.
It is. It's still cheaper than the 22
per unit. Yes, but the program is now more expensive.
Yeah,
it's just cheaper per unit, and that's if you discount the marine. Anyway, I just write a thing about this clearly. And you read these revelations, and you look at it and go, "What are we doing?" But really, what are we doing? taken this aspect of collect all the things, which is almost literally the motto of the NSA. They probably have a more fancy one, but that comes from a quote from an NSA director. Collect all the things. And how do we can't process all of them. What's worked is targeted metadata. But instead, what we've done is just collected everything, and we can't even manage to prevent attacks when they come.
They're literally drinking from a fire hose.
Right. And they have broken digital encryption, they have hacked, they have stolen, they have implanted malware, all in the name of increasing this fire hose that they can't process. And that beyond their inability to do anything with it, it fundamentally abrogates the rights and principles of the United States. Any high horse we have about ourselves as America, the NSA undermines every day.
Yep.
And, any sense of moral leadership that we thought we had in the world, the Snowden revelations and leaks like it, this one from Reuters and Kaspersky, should show you that that's not necessarily the case. And that we need to take a step back and think about our rhetoric of nationalism and what we do in the name of it. So there's no really clean way to transition to this. To speaking of formerly American companies.
So yeah, this week our favorite Windows OEM screwed up.
Yeah, used formerly. Now I don't have a favorite Windows OEM.
They're still my favorite
buy a
OEM.
Macintosh. You can run Windows on it.
Just no, our favorite
Surface.
by Surface.
This doesn't help.
Our favorite, our previously favorite Windows OEM screwed up big time. So recent Lenovo consumer laptops, so from about September of last year to January of this year, were shipped with an adware program called Superfish.
That should have been your first problem.
So
it literally has phishing in the name.
Yeah. So what we didn't know is that Superfish basically conducts a man-in-the-middle attack on anyone that has a Lenovo laptop with it installed by generating its own SSL certificates for a website that users visit. Like Bank of America, Wells Fargo, anything that has that HTTPS is using an SSL certificate, including all of the secure sites that you would visit. So the goal of this, as with all adware programs, was to sell better ads to users in more places. That was their stated goal, was to sell more ads to you everywhere by collecting lots of data on you.
Collect all the things.
Exactly. So Lenovo had announced that they ceased the partnership back in January, but it did not remove the software from the computers that already had it. Now, LastPass has developed a nice little web tool that will check laptops for Superfish and provide instructions on how to remove it. It's really simple. They just ask for an SSL certificate, and then it'll say that it was issued by Superfish. They didn't really hide the fact that this thing was generating SSL certificates for them. So if this isn't bad enough already, this week Superfish was cracked, opening all Lenovo laptops with the software installed to attack. Because the software has root level access and essentially bypasses any web security, all private and secure browsing history is stored within it and totally accessible to those that have cracked it.
Yep.
So Trey, what does Lenovo need to do to backtrack from this really bad screw up? And better yet, why do OEMs who make money off selling hardware feel like they need to try to make an extra buck off of compromising their user security?
Well, I can answer question 2 easily because the margins on hardware are very, very slim. They want to get anything possible to up their margins a little bit because when you're trying to sell in a $400 laptop market, that you are getting very close to your costs. And so you try to find ways to offset that. And that's why crapware of any kind exists.
And Lenovo was one of the better ones as far as crapware.
Right. Well, they were. And then they did this.
I did confirm my I have a Yoga first generation. Right when it was released, I bought a Yoga. It does not have Superfish on it. So it is a more recent.
It in, 2013, 2012?
2012.
2012, yeah. But the thing is, all of all the manufacturers suffer from the same problem. The very thin margins on PCs. And so they find weird ways. That's why McAfee is still a thing. Is because, they just pay the PC vendors to have that crapware trial on there. Or,
And then you pay it to make it go away.
Right, and then you pay it to make it go away. Or you uninstall it like you should. Especially from Windows 8. Or, Rhapsody used to do it. Or, eBay. I remember buying
so many of those things.
Right, and you can buy many... And they don't really promote this because they don't want to. But if you buy through the Microsoft Store, buy any PC through the Microsoft Store, you can often get it as what's called a Microsoft Signature Edition, which is basically like it comes with vanilla Windows. Like vanilla Android. So it comes without any of the crapware. And that's how I bought... That's actually, of all the last PCs I've bought, that's how I've done it. Obviously, the Surface comes as a Signature Edition. But so did my Acer Revo, which is the other kind of... non-used Windows PC that I've purchased, in the past few years. And that, to me, was a lot better, because you don't have to go through and spend 2 hours. And some of these things have such deep root access that even if you think you've uninstalled it all, you have to go through and delete things from the registry, and it's just, you end up down a rabbit hole of pain.
Let me see if I can find that LastPass link. Keep going.
So that's why they did that. In terms of this particular one, I think they didn't look at it that closely. Because who wouldn't actually knowingly agree to this? I would like to extend them the benefit of the doubt and just think that this was a bad job of kind of CYA, a bad job of due diligence, rather than like actively thinking, oh, this is a brilliant idea. We're going to man in the middle and attack all of our consumers.
Well, I don't think they understood how it worked.
Right, that's what I mean. They did a bad job of figuring out what this thing was.
Yeah, I think that I couldn't get the LastPass article pulled up. But yeah, I do think that Lenovo, it was only on their consumer PCs, is something that was noted. Like this was only installed on consumer PCs. This was not installed.
Tends to only be on consumer PCs.
Yeah, it was not. Well, mainly because business PCs are sold at a higher margin because business users expect a different level of quality because they don't accept that. Guess what? When that thing breaks at 2.5 years, you're replacing it.
Right. Well, yeah.
Like you have as the manufacturer, because they all buy 3-year warranties. So all business laptops are kind of built around that 3-year warranty. And by the way, I learned this from someone, one of my manufacturer's reps. Find out how much they'll charge you to increase the warranty. So like a lot of times they charge you a basic amount for a warranty. And then you say, okay, well, how much is it to increase it? A little bit, and then a little bit more, and a little bit more. And wherever the spike is, that's where their projected failure device is.
Right, that makes sense.
But it was like, it's the most obvious thing in the world that I had never thought about. It's just wherever the spike is where they're expecting it to fail.
Yeah, that's what their actuarial tables say. Oh, that's when this dies. I'd be interested to know what that is for your average workstation PC. And it's probably, 3 years?
You can look at, I saw a recent thing on hard drive failures. And basically, it's like steady, then you lose some, steady, then you lose a bunch right at about 4 or 5 years. But then it was like a 10-year thing. And then you have about 20% of them that just run.
Forever.
Just run.
And they'll keep on running.
But you can never trust them to keep on running.
No. Something that you hope you can trust to keep on running, though, is our next story.
Yeah, so forget about like Apple Watch. Apparently what Apple's cooking up next is going to be even bigger.
And more expensive.
We
may have finally found something more expensive than a Mac Pro.
So, the gold Apple Watch.
Maybe. Those are going to be competitive. You can spec out quite a Mac Pro. Trust me.
That's true. So Apple is apparently targeting a 2020 release date for its first electric car.
Oh, Jesus.
That's right. You heard me. Electric car, according to a Bloomberg report out yesterday. The report has a lot of detail on this story that I can't fully kind of summarize here, but here's my best shot at it. The gist is that the car development takes about 5 to 7 years from idea to full production. So that's already kind of an ambitious deadline. But also, according to the report, Apple has hundreds of employees working on a secret project codenamed Titan.
like everything else last year.
Yep, that focused on initial design work for a minivan-esque vehicle.
Because nothing screams sexy like minivan. Maybe
Yep.
that's the thing. Maybe Apple thinks what they can really disrupt is the minivan market, because
Yeah.
those things are terrible, but filled with technology.
That's true.
I mean,
And
we
they
never
also
thought
have a
a
lot of space
smartphone
for
would be
batteries.
right, but we never thought a smartphone would be sexy. And then the iPhone came out. Those were like clunky and kludgy and based on PDAs, which were never sexy. So maybe, laptops too. It's, your standard black plastic terrible thing, and then Apple's carved molded aluminum or whatever. A single billet. It's carved from a single billet of aluminum.
Whatever.
So maybe they're going to do the same thing to minivans.
Yeah, I mean they're going to be going up. Very successful Elon Musk startup Tesla, as well as go ahead.
Which they tried to buy.
Yeah, as well as against heavyweights in the car industry such as GM, who plan to have both Tesla and GM plan to have electric cars capable of going over 200 miles on a single charge for less than $40,000 by 2017. So they're already kind of behind the gun on that. So, lending some credibility to this report is a lawsuit that was filed this week by battery manufacturer A123, who's suing Apple for actively poaching their employees.
And actually causing them to go out of business.
And causing them to go out of business because they couldn't find anyone to replace the people that Apple had poached.
Hey?
It said something like 5 to 7 people had either been poached by Apple or who were actively calling and trying to recruit more people from A123 to come work for Apple.
Don't hate the player, hate the game.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be successful. But the battery manufacturer, if you're not familiar with them, they designed and provided batteries for other electric cars, such as like the Fisker Karma. So, Trey, will your next car be unabashedly plastic?
My second car was unabashedly plastic. I've owned a Saturn in my life. I've owned a plastic car. I mean, that thing is literally made of the exterior body panels are made of plastic.
So is my car. My car is completely made of plastic.
So when I rammed it into the wheel well of a Dodge Durango, my car was fine, by the way, because I had kinetic energy on my side. And they were I totally ruined their wheel well. I was able to pull the plastic shards of my fender out of their tire, and it's still in my bathroom at my parents' house. I keep it as a trophy of war. So I have owned an unabashedly plastic car, and so God, I hope not. No, it is light. But I'm hoping for carbon fiber.
So here's my theory on the minivan
carbotanium.
thing. Well, there is that.
Yeah.
So here's my theory on the minivan thing. So if you look at what Tesla and what GM and what everyone in the market's kind of doing is they're pushing the really tiny cars that are very light in and of themselves and just packing them full of batteries. Tesla a little less so. It's a full-size sedan, the Model S.
Tesla, the Volt's a midsize.
The Volt's a midsize, but that's a more complicated thing. Well, and Ford even has like all the Fusion, but no one is really doing like the Fusion and the Focus electric.
Right.
But no one is really doing anything kind of in that minivan space. And so I think that the only thing I can see is that Apple could be going after that market.
Yeah, but Tesla's got the SUV coming out.
Yeah, but it's like a Chevy Equinox size SUV.
Sure,
but
that's
the Lexus that all stay-at-home moms own.
Yeah, it was the RX 330 when I was a kid. Now it's probably
it's
something
still
else.
Kind of the same
RX. Thing. Yeah, but those are basically, in terms of weight, are fairly close to minivan.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly running the same kind of powertrain as a minivan. So that's the danger of minivans, to me, is they're pushing the amount of air of a large SUV, but those usually have large engines, V6s or V8s. These minivans are usually running 4s or 6s, and 6 if you're lucky. It's why they're so slow and awful.
It's usually a truck chassis with a car engine.
It's not even that.
It used to be.
No, they're now usually just basically they are the full-sized car with a box on top.
Oh, see, my dad's Villager was a F-150 chassis.
Yeah, but that's back when you did that. It's not how it is anymore.
When truck chassis were smaller, they've gotten larger over time.
Yeah, and that's some of it.
But I mean, what? So, do you really think that Apple's going to get into cars? Do you think that that's a logical place for them to go?
I think there are other logical reasons for them to be working. They're already working in cars. They're working on CarPlay. And so it would make a whole lot of sense to have a large team working on CarPlay because they think that's going to be key to their business. Also, battery life is key to their business. So them having battery people and them having car people, there's a perfectly... Occam's razor would say that since we know of existing programs, all of their products run on lithium-ion batteries, and they already have an in-car initiative that's more in their wheelhouse, Occam's razor would say that's the answer. But I don't have, I'm not talking to these sources. And maybe there's other,
I think Bloomberg just burned a source because you know how Apple kind of trickles stuff out there just to see who says something. I think the Bloomberg just burned a source.
Sure. And this could be a strategic leak by Apple, too. This is one theory I've heard, is this is a strategic leak by Apple because their negotiations to buy Tesla failed. So Elon Musk has admitted that they were Apple and him were in talks about something. The rumor was that Apple would just go ahead and purchase Tesla. Last week, there were rumors, I think it was last week or the week before, of a self-driving or LiDAR-enabled Apple car.
That was last week. Yeah, that was the beginning of last week.
And that's kind of what got this ball rolling. So I wonder if this is either a strategic leak for Apple or someone went ahead and burned a source. Maybe there really is something. I think not to put too much stock in it. Apple looks at a lot of things. For a very long time, Apple was looking at putting out a television.
I almost said, forget about the Apple TV.
Right. Well, and then they.
But that rumor has resurfaced recently.
Right. But we at least know that they were working on that,
mm-hmm.
and then they didn't do it. This could be another one of those, or this could be like the iPhone and the iPad, where they just work on it for a really, really long time, 5-6 years, and then put it out, and it's all going to be shocking and amazing. But I mean, I get that cars are becoming more and more, connected and mobile technology-esque, but that's still only one part of the car. And it's going to be more of it as cars become self-driving. But does it really make sense to get into this relatively low-margin business? Cars, you're making, on a luxury car, you're making like a 30% margin. On an iPhone, they're making a 70% margin. So they're going to be willing to give up the margins. The upgrade cycle on cars is terrible from Apple's perspective. People keep their cars like they keep their televisions. Why, if you're Apple, would you want to get into a low turnover business? Then you've got to deal with how do you sell them. I mean, Tesla has this problem.
How do you service them?
How do you service them? And there's a lot of little finicky parts what are you going to design each part of that car yourself? And then that car's, trust me, I've owned a BMW built car, then those cars are hell to maintain. I used to park my Mini at the dealership, and it was just $1,000 to leave, I think, because there wasn't a repair that wasn't $1,000. And that's because all of them are little fiddly, discrete, custom parts. And so, what, are you going to pull your car up to the Genius Bar? I mean, there's just so much other stuff that goes into a car. I think they're planning on maybe the same way Tegra, NVIDIA is, of thinking about systems to power the car. That they are the computer and operating system, not just behind your infotainment system like in CarPlay, but behind all of your integrated systems. That you have, cars with Apple built into them as the systems. You have Mac cars.
Well, I mean, we look at like Windows integrated stuff.
Yeah,
Windows embedded,
which is what ran Ford Sync for a while. It ran some Fiat head units for a while. It runs my stupid head unit.
It ran Ford Sync from when it was introduced in 2008 until this model year.
When they switched to QNX.
They had a nice long run with Windows embedded. But and you look at that, like QNX, that's a company that is basically worthless other than the fact that they have this embedded stuff.
They run like aircraft. They're owned by BlackBerry.
Yeah, no, I know. But like I said, it's basically worthless. So that's a potential growth market for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think as you think of cars as an the systems within cars as an Internet of Things device, and the fact that Apple needs batteries anyways, I really don't see them making like a sheet metal and driving car. Like, unless they really do or they find a way to leverage buy out Tesla. Like,
well,
they
and then
bought
remember with Google how Google got into the phone market and then was like, wait, we have to service these things.
Right.
I feel like that's what's going to happen with Apple. They're going to get into the car market and go, damn, the service on these things is bad.
Right, and the margins are awful, and the infrastructure needed. You can't sell them at Apple stores. Right, I'm seeing Tesla dealerships pop up, which that's a risky venture.
They're actual dealerships, not just the store?
Yeah, I drove by one the other day. There's one here on the north side of Atlanta. Yeah, it is fascinating. I'm just not sold. I would love to see it. I don't want to have to upgrade my car every year. But I would love to see it.
It'd be like the Samsung upgrade box thing where you just take the box out and you put the new Apple box in.
I'm hoping that's how the watch works. Lord knows, if you're buying a gold, especially if you're buying a gold one, which someone's saying they think they're going to sell 1 million of those a month. Not total Apple Watches might do, just the gold one.
Well, I think what they'll offer is that you'll come into a store like as a service. So like you bought this however many thousands of dollar thing and they'll rip the guts of it out and put in the new guts. Because the materials... It's one of those things where and you know how they'll sell it. We're focusing on the sustainability of our design, and so we want to reuse as much of the old watch as possible.
I hope so, because that would actually
free upgrades on your watch.
Well, if you buy one for $6,000, you probably should, because the guts aren't what's driving that price up. We know the guts are, $100, right? Because they're in a $350 watch. And so if you assume Apple's making a 70% margin on that.
And I will assume that the ones on in that price point, there's going to be a certain price point where above that, Apple is going to just say, we will service this for the life of the device.
And just upgrade it.
Like, yeah,
until... Again, but... that you then have to
support it for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, but then you have to break a very Apple design thing, right? You have to build a seam, which they don't even do on their laptops, really. You have to build a seam into that device so that you can rip the guts out. And then it's no longer going to be this beautiful, seamless, crafted thing.
But I think that if they're doing it in their store, that's the biggest thing. I think that if
they're doing it in their store, Nintendo... Where's the Nintendo thing? Nintendo put lock screws on things so that you couldn't service them. But if you're going to service them, even in store, there's going to have to be screws and seams, like there are on iPhones.
I think it'll all be, like iPhones. Similar build construction idea. Yeah. But anyways.
She got the little bitty screws, little bitty screws.
Stupid pentalobe screws.
Yeah, no, that'll really mess you up. So speaking of things that are messed up, Sony, Kazuya Hirai, CEO of Sony, wants to increase their profits 25 times, not 25%, 25x, in the next 3 years.
What are they going to do, sell marijuana?
They sell insurance now.
Same thing.
This is going to take some drastic moves, as Sony has lost money 6 out of the last 7 years. So what are they considering, you may ask? They are thinking of exiting the television and smartphone sectors and focusing on image sensors, video games, and entertainment. So like their various movie and audio music studios. They basically want to stop being Sony and start being a weird mix of Canon, Nintendo, and Disney. This is a big shift in strategy for a company that built its reputation on televisions and portable devices. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. But do you think this is a bold enough strategy for them to actually pull off this kind of epic turnaround?
It's certainly bold enough. Whether it's going to be successful is another thing entirely. Well,
it's not easy it's not so hard to grow profits 25 times when you have no profits currently.
Well, and the other thing is that they're getting out of, we just had the conversation about how hardware can be a low margin game. Well, the problem is that Sony has some fantastic hardware in their phones,
and their televisions.
And they just can't compete. Like, the things that they are offering are Sony is not the brand that it used to be. So Sony can't charge what it used to charge
because they
and
didn't
still
come up
get
with
it.
because they didn't come up with the iPod. They had all of the pieces. They could have done it, and they didn't.
And this is the ramifications of that.
Yeah.
So if you look at it like image sensors, like you look at Canon, for example, on image sensors, Canon is not doing anything interesting in the image sensor game. As far as on smaller devices, which is where the majority of image sensors are.
Which is where Sony's playing a pretty good game.
And that's where Sony is making a killing, because on every single iPhone sold, Sony is selling an image sensor.
Right.
Because,
and a lot of Samsung and a lot of other manufacturers. I mean, they make a ton of money off the smartphone business, specifically in terms of image sensors.
In fact, I think that there was a rumor recently that the new HTC is going to be a Sony sensor. The 20 megapixel Sony sensor. And so I think that in a lot of ways is going to make a lot of sense for them to double down on these things that they're actually making money on. And
heck of an idea.
but personally, like, Sony televisions used to be the gold standard of high-end televisions. The Bravia line had
And the Trinitron before that.
Yeah, had just such a reputation, and so it's sad to see that going away. And it's also sad, like, currently. So, my Nexus 5 died, and I keep
rephrase that. Take out passive voice. You
Okay.
killed your Nexus 5.
There were complications.
He killed his Nexus 5.
So I killed my Nexus 5, and one of the phones I was seriously considering was the most recent Xperia phone. And the only reason I didn't move on it is because I want to see if anything gets announced at Mobile World Congress
Like
at
the
the end of the
Galaxy
month
S6.
that I'm interested in.
The Galaxy, I mean, it
That
could
I'm
be
interested
made out
in.
of metal and have the rounded screen. It could be
Right.
really cool. I'm
That's why-
very intrigued to see what they do.
That's why I want to wait, because I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what HTC is going to do. I don't know what people are going to do. So I want to wait. But other than that, currently the best phone on the market in the Android space
It's the iPhone 6 Plus.
is the Xperia Z3. Waterproof,
Yeah, but
2-day
they're
battery
not-
life,
no
great
one's
camera.
buying them.
But no one's buying them because they have no marketing. They're so bad at marketing these things. And go
They
ahead.
can market things if they want to. PlayStation's marketed all over the place. PlayStation has great marketing.
Right,
But
they're
that company doesn't work together.
yeah. And so the problem is that in gaming circles, the PS4 has just like kicked the crap out of the Xbox in a lot of ways, and not so much recently, but
Certainly in the
there's
first 9 months of this console cycle.
but
Xbox
I don't
had better exclusives. Has always had better exclusives.
I don't think that Sony has really poured their marketing behind their Xperia phones. And I think that their Xperia phones and their televisions, they backed off on the marketing of the televisions. So this is in a lot of ways, I think, a self-fulfilling prophecy. They've poured the marketing into the PS4. They have not poured the marketing into Xperia or Bravia.
I wonder how much of this is all the television manufacturers got drunk on HD.
I think you're right.
When HD came out, everyone bought a new TV, whether it was time to buy one or not. There was like a 3-4 year period where everybody bought a TV. Okay? From like 04 to 09, everyone bought a TV. And so the television was just this it's why CES is still to this day a mostly television show, right? Because of that 5-year window where everyone was buying a TV. And then they hit the end of that window, and even I bought an HD TV at the end of that window. And then they hit the end of that and went, well, now what? How do we get people to buy another television? And so 3D and 4K and 8K and all of this BS has been an attempt to do that same kind of churn. And the reality is, there just isn't enough of a value there. Consumers are not that dumb. I mean, except when it comes to Apple products, they're really not that dumb. And they realize, hey, this HD TV plays the content that exists very well. It lasts a very long time. I don't need to upgrade my HD TV very often because, I kept one from 09. I still have it, but I kept one from 09 to 2014, and I because I really wanted to, but I didn't need to. It looked fine. And I look at my new TV and I notice how it's better, but I edit video.
Well, that's this television behind me is about 4 years old, and it's small. It's a Samsung. It's small. It's about a 40-inch TV. But other than that, there's no reason to buy a new television.
Right. And so
it works fine. It has all the ports I need.
And they last. It's one of the few tech devices that lasts. TVs, because you don't move them much. They tend to stick around for a while. And so I think all the manufacturers, because everyone's like scaling back their TVs or getting out of plasma or selling off their TV division or whatever it is, because they built this industry like Nintendo did for the Wii, that it was just going to keep going like that. And in fact was HD was like an anomaly.
It was a flash in the pan.
It was a flash in the pan. It lasted 5 years. And it was crazy, and everyone bought a TV. But now we've all sobered up because we have the TV we want.
Well, and the people that are doing the best in this new market are like Vizio, because Vizio.
I've bought 2 of them.
Right. Well, and I think part of that is because Vizio was a little later to the party. So Vizio built more around efficiency and delivering
and value.
And they're the ones that run they ran a curved TV ad that was like an infomercial. For like glasses that would uncurve your TV,
right?
And all kinds of things. And basically said, don't buy into the BS.
Right. So I even forgot to bring up curved. The idea of a curved TV is ludicrous.
So you want to make your viewing angles worse,
or the 21:9.
God, that's so dumb.
That's because it only works for movies.
That's the newest thing. That's the newest thing, and I hate it.
By the way, The Order 1886. That's its only resolution.
21:9?
21:9.
You gotta be freaking kidding me.
Nope. Whole game plays in 21:9.
Oh my God.
So there's going to be huge black bars. Just by the way.
Fantastic.
Yeah. I thought, yeah. So speaking of fantastic, is this week's last call.
So we've all joked for years about the coming of Skynet.
Yep.
But it would seem that the Global Challenges Initiative now agrees with us on their list.
Who are they? Who is the Global Challenges Initiative?
They're a group of academics that put together this list. The majority of them seem to come from Oxford, but they're kind of from all over. And they developed this list of 12 risks that threaten human civilization.
Uh-huh.
And to that list, they've added artificial intelligence.
Oh, great.
Alongside old favorites such as global pandemic and major asteroid impact.
And Fergie.
And
Fergie is one of the 12.
Only in the 90s.
No, she's still a risk. Like bubonic plague, she just died down for now. She may be back.
Oh, God.
Watch out for Fergie.
So what the Global Challenges Initiative tries to do is define areas where the risks are, quote, infinite. And a quote from the report about robots says, quote, such extreme intelligences could not easily be controlled either by the groups creating them or by some international regulatory regime, and would probably act to boost their own intelligence and acquire maximal resources for almost all initial AI motivations. So, however...
So
these robots.
Matrix.
So yes,
we need to hit them all.
But these robot overlords, they could be our salvation, though, because quote, an intelligence of such power could easily combat most other risks in the report, and making extremely intelligent AI into a tool of great potential. End quote. So
that
Trey
sounds like the justification for Maoism.
Yep.
Actually, I think that is exactly the justification for Maoism and Stalinism.
I picked this story up off of the Technically Incorrect blog from
Chris Matishchik, like the inspiration for this section of our show.
Well, I didn't have anything else for this section, so I was just like, let's go see what's going on Technically Incorrect this week. And I saw this article, and just his sarcasm, just dripping sarcasm on this. It's like, yeah, so you put the robots in charge. They'll take care of global warming, and they'll take care of
global humans.
And
it's like, the Roomba, look, a Roomba has already attacked a woman. We live in a world where a Roomba has attacked a woman.
Yeah, that's true.
Has
So here,
sucked up her hair.
let me just read the end of Chris Matishchik's article because I can't summarize it as well as he does. So, quote, there's a certain beauty about all this. We create robots. They cure global warming. They completely negate the possibility of nuclear war. Global pandemics are eradicated. Hurtling asteroids are deflected with just one laser beam from a robot's left eye. When all this is done, the robots take one look at us and think, nah, bored of you, and smite us with one easy zap.
Yep.
End quote.
I for one welcome our new robot overlords. And on that note, it's time to end. Thank you so much for joining us on this very uplifting show. If you have any feedback for us, podcast, textlesscall.com, facebook.com/textlesscall, pinterest.com/textlesscall, or at textlesscall on the Twitters. However you find us, we'll be seeing you on the interwebs. Show title is The Hypocrisy of the Chinese is Fascinating.
Yeah, sorry for that F-bomb I dropped there early.
It's okay. It seemed like an appropriate